How much better did the Lions actually get so far in free agency? And we're recapping this on a Saturday, the weekend. Clearly, you had the legal tampering period for those 3 days, which was relatively quiet and brought about a lot of signings of the Lions' own guys. But there were some additions, and we'll talk about them. But did the Lions get better? That's the question. How much better did they get? And I think it starts with the concern level that on the current roster, I think the two biggest question marks that everybody's going to approach is what are Aleem McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson going to look like when they return? And for Aleem McNeil, you would expect probably not getting the full scope of the player that you signed to that massive extension. You're not going to get that probably until midseason. So that's a question mark. That's why you go out and you get a Roy Lopez. That's why you're probably going to keep DJ Reader on this roster to continue to grow and thrive. And you still got Makai Wingo, who's battling Broderick Martin, will be available for competition. And you brought back Levi Onwuzurike. Levi Onwuzurike, I think, is intriguing because many people felt like, okay, he would have been priced out of the Lions market if he would have gotten an offer for 10 million, 12 million. He might have even been priced out if someone gave him 7 million outside of the organization. But clearly, based on his market value outside of Detroit, he was much more valuable to the Lions and he got a prove it deal. And so that's advantageous. Everybody that looks at that contract says, okay, you can work with Levi Onwuzurike for that 1-year contract price. And you say, all right, you're paying him less than 10 million a year. You get him for 1 year. You know you're going to get a hungry Levi Onwuzurike. And I love what he said when he spoke to reporters when the Lions free agent spoke to the media. He said, yeah, I definitely got my fair share of pressures. I had a healthier year compared to the years past, but now I got to step it up. Levi Onwuzurike is key. That's a signing that if you can get more value than you got in previous years, if he can increase his sack total, be consistent, elevate his game, now you have another force from a player that can play a couple different spots along your defensive line. I think that a hungry, healthy Levi Onwuzurike should give some Lions fans confidence that, okay, this is a player that should benefit from working with Casey Rogers and have the opportunity to make plays, help Kelvin Shepherd's defense. And so the other player that we got to pay attention to is Josh Paschal. I do think that you got to get more out of him. He is a leader, he's capable of being a leader. I think that his development is going to be vital to the success of the Lions. So Levi Onwuzurike and Josh Paschal, two players on this Lions roster that if they take the next step forward, greatly help the Lions' chances in a playoff push. If they don't, you could argue, because look, you know what you're going to get from Aiden, hopefully. You could argue those two players, if they don't develop, it's going to make it massively tougher for the Lions to be successful and to be where they would need to be. So I'm excited to see what Levi Onwuzurike can bring to the table. Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil, those are going to be massive, massive question marks, because if you get them back, at the tail end of the season, November, December, January, as you're making the playoff push, what an added benefit. If you can get, and remember, Aiden Hutchinson suffered that injury to the other leg at Michigan, came back, and has now developed into a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, all-world player, and somebody on the verge of potentially breaking the bank. So if you can get Aleem McNeil, if you can get Aiden Hutchinson producing by the end of the year at a very high level, that just only bodes well. So that's a question mark. I think that's where a lot of the angst is coming from supporters, is they realize, okay, you just watched the Super Bowl where the front four of the Eagles completely neutralized an all-world quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. Neutralized him. Made him look silly. Made him look average. Made him look human. And many people would like to see that similarly with the Detroit Lions. And they took a chance. I do think that if you are gambling with Marcus Davenport, I am wondering if the opportunity to bring back Za'Darius Smith is still out there. I think his elevated age might prevent the Lions from bringing him back. But it's a really intriguing subject because, the more you get away from it, the more you say, okay, at that price that he had, maybe he was not going to be a fit financially with the cap. But an affordable contract couple $1 million, a lot of incentives. Still does make some sense to bring him back. Now, me personally, I could understand why you want to go younger. You probably are going to add two more players in the draft that are pass rushers. You still could go get a player down the road here that is a defensive lineman that's solid, but that's nowhere near the cost that a Zadarius Smith could command. And there could be some more interest from some teams down the road for Zadarius that might prevent him from wanting to come back to Detroit. So it's intriguing. I would not be terribly opposed to bringing him back. Look, I clearly everybody knows that when players end up, later on, I think it's just more advantageous to suit up younger players that can hold up in a playoff grind, can battle through some double teams, can battle through some things. But you clearly see that the Lions, they want their players to fit a certain mold, and they got to be able to stop the run. They got to be able to be somewhat able to win their one-on-one matchups to be able to rush the quarterback. But yeah, the increased sack total, where are they going to come from? That's the biggest question mark. And so the Lions made moves clearly. They did get better. I think that DJ Reed is a slight improvement over Carlton Davis. I think that pairing is going to be something that the Lions are going to count on to be very much a pairing with Tyrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, DJ Reed, Amik Robertson. That foursome can definitely do a lot of different things